To save my family I married a millionaire who was old and weak. On our wedding night I walked into the bedroom. He took off his mask, and when I saw his face, I froze. That was. My name is Amara Lewis, I am 24 years old, born and raised in a small African coastal town, and I work as a hospital administrative assistant. I never imagined that one day I would sit in front of a camera, sharing the darkest and most unbelievable chapter of my life. But I am doing this because people like you deserve to know how far a woman can go when her family's survival is on the line. This is not a fairy tale. It is a story of love, betrayal, identity, manipulation, power, and a revenge so unbearable that even now my voice shakes remembering it. I grew up in a warm family, but hardship never left our doorstep. My father's small transport business collapsed after a series of robberies, my mother fell ill, and my younger brother was on the verge of dropping out of school. Banks refused us loans. Relatives turned their backs. I had two choices, either watch everything crumble or sacrifice myself to save them. That was when I met Mr. Solomon Caldwell, the 72-year-old millionaire who practically owned half the hotels, casinos, and transport lines across the region. He appeared in my life like an answer to a prayer I never wanted to make. Solomon was old, fragile, and lonely, with a strange aura of mystery around him. He had no biological children, only an adopted heir no one had ever seen publicly. He approached my family with an offer: marry him, help him regain dignity and companionship in his final years, and in return he would clear every debt my family had and secure my brother's education permanently. My parents were terrified. I was terrified. But hunger does not fear lions, and poverty does not let you sleep. I said yes. The wedding was grand, glamorous, and suffocating. Gold everywhere, cameras everywhere, people pretending to celebrate a marriage built on desperation. I smiled for photos, but inside I was shaking. Solomon wore a beautiful black and silver mask for the ceremony, a strange tradition he claimed came from his ancestors, worn only at weddings to ward off bad omens. When the ceremony ended and the guests finally left, my heart pounded. I was a young woman starting a marriage with a man old enough to be my grandfather. I told myself to stay calm. I reminded myself why I was here, for my family, for survival. Then came our wedding night. I walked into the heavily decorated bedroom, with red and white roses, candles glowing, and soft music coming from the corners. Solomon entered behind me, moving slowly, leaning slightly on his cane. He looked at me, then lifted his hand to remove his mask. But the moment the mask came off, my entire world tilted. Because the person who raised his face to me was not the old, weak man I had married publicly. Standing in front of me was a young man, maybe 27 or 28, tall, sharp-jawed, breathtakingly handsome, with eyes I knew better than my own heartbeat. I stumbled back, my breath caught in my chest. "Kai," I whispered. The name escaped my lips before I could stop it. He froze. His eyes widened. Kai, my first love. My long-lost lover who disappeared 5 years earlier after promising to return and marry me. And here he was, standing in a silk black suit, removing the same mask he wore at the ceremony, revealing the face I thought I would never see again. Before I could speak again, the door behind him opened. The real Solomon Caldwell, the elderly millionaire, walked in. My knees nearly gave out. My world cracked open. The young man in front of me, the man I once loved, was not just any adopted heir. He was the hidden son, the carefully groomed successor. He had been adopted by Solomon, raised in secrecy, trained for power, and prepared to inherit everything. And I had walked straight into a trap that neither of them warned me about. Solomon smiled in a way that chilled my bones. You two know each other, he said calmly. Kai's jaw clenched, his eyes locked on mine, but he looked away quickly, as if ashamed. My voice shook. You disappeared, you left without a single word. Kai answered quietly, I didn't leave. I was taken. Solomon waved his hand. I rescued him from poverty and shaped him into the man you see now. But fate has an interesting humor. I never expected my heir's former lover to become my wife. My heart twisted painfully. Solomon continued, tonight is not about love. Tonight is about legacy. You will help continue this family line. I felt sick. I will not, I whispered. Solomon's expression hardened. Your family owes me, and I always collect. I knew then that he had never intended to marry me for companionship. He wanted control, obedience, and a future child to secure his empire. But the biggest wound came from Kai. He didn't defend me. He didn't speak. He didn't stop Solomon. He only watched silently, torn, trapped, but still complicit. Days passed. I lived like a prisoner in luxury. Solomon treated me as property. Kai avoided me, drowning in guilt but never breaking free. I wanted to hate him, but the love I once had for him burned like poison. One night, I overheard Solomon and his lawyer discussing something horrifying. He had rewritten the will. If I bore him a child, the entire empire would go to Kai through that child. But if I refused or tried to escape, my family would suffer. For the first time in my life, I felt my soul turn cold. I knew I had to choose between being a victim, or becoming something sharper, deadlier, smarter. So I played along. I became soft, obedient, fragile. I pretended to care. I pretended to be confused. I pretended to accept my fate. Solomon was old, but not stupid. Still, he believed what he wanted to believe. Kai remained conflicted, torn between loyalty and guilt. Months passed. I gained their trust. And when trust becomes a weapon, the person holding it becomes unstoppable. One stormy night, the mansion was filled with guests for Solomon's annual celebration. I wore a beautiful crimson satin gown, hair curled, eyes shimmering like nothing was wrong. Solomon held my hand proudly. Kai watched me with an unreadable expression. When the clock struck midnight, I stepped forward with a small glass in my hand. To the man who saved my family, I said softly. Solomon smiled, then drank from his cup. Within minutes, his breathing changed. His chest tightened. His body trembled. His heart, already weak, couldn't take the extra dose of medication I had slowly been feeding him for weeks. He collapsed. Chaos erupted. People screamed. Doctors rushed. But it was too late. Solomon Caldwell was gone. And I stood still, watching the empire crumble and shift in one single night. But Kai looked at me with horror. You planned this, he whispered. I looked at him coldly, the last piece of my heart breaking. What you two did to me, what he forced me into, what you allowed, did you think I would survive it and stay silent? Tears filled his eyes. That child he wanted. I would never bring life into a cage, I replied. The will activated immediately. Solomon's assets transferred to me as the legal widow. Kai, the heir, lost his legal claim because the marriage was less than a year old. Solomon's old lawyers had warned him about that loophole, but he ignored it, believing he'd live longer. Kai fell to his knees, devastated. Amara, please, don't destroy me. I never stopped loving you. I looked at him, and, for a moment, the memory of us at 17 flickered inside me. But pain extinguished it. You stopped loving me the day you stayed silent. I exiled him from the estate permanently. He left in tears, stripped of everything Solomon gave him, forced to face the world he once escaped. As for me, I rebuilt my family's life, restored my mother's health, and sent my brother abroad for studies. I became the owner of the Caldwell Empire, stronger, colder, wiser. People call me cruel for what I did. But they will never understand the price a woman pays when she is pushed to the edge, betrayed by the man she loved, used by the man she married, and left with no place to hide her broken heart. I didn't seek revenge. Revenge found me. And when it did, I didn't run. I stood still, and let it burn everything that once hurt me. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place?